Gravitas tells you stories which others won't. And tonight we will tell you about this new strategic map that is being drawn.
They say your enemy's enemy is your friend. Is that the foundation of the new defense bridge between India and America?
This is what separates us from others who claim to be telling you global stories that matter. In the last 3 days, WION has been traveling across Syria. You are in Latakia city right now. Tell us, what is the situation on ground at Gravitas? We don't just tell you stories from selected countries from around the world.
2 years since the Myanmar military coup, the people of Myanmar continue to live in a nightmare.
Because it does not suit their propaganda, or because they are too scared to speak truth to power.
The stress of our world can take a toll on our physical and emotional health. Here in New York.
There are many other
Hello there, a very warm welcome to WION, broadcasting live from the British capital this hour. You're with me, Katie Pilbeam. Let's get to the headlines. Britain launches large-scale evacuation of its citizens trapped in Sudan. The move comes after the warring generals agreed to a 72-hour ceasefire brokered by the United States. Singapore government slams British billionaire Richard Branson for criticising the death penalty given to a man convicted of conspiracy to traffic over 1 kilogram of cannabis. The government says that Branson has showed disrespect for Singapore's judges and criminal justice system. US President Joe Biden is expected to announce his re-election bid on Tuesday, exactly 4 years after he first announced his election run. It's a race that could pit 80-year-old Biden against Donald Trump once again. Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi inaugurates the country's first water metro in the southern state of Kerala. It's a first-of-a-kind public boat service integrated with a metro rail network. Louis Vuitton's parent company, LVMH, becomes the first European company to reach $500 billion in market value. It is closing in on Tesla for the 9th spot on the world's biggest companies by market share. Ajinkya Rahane returns to the Indian squad for the World Test Championship final against Australia. Rohit Sharma will lead the 15-man team as India chase a maiden WTC title. First to our top story today. The diplomacy revolving around China has become one of the key issues in the West. Many leaders, including the UK Prime Minister, has been critical of China and its growing influence. Well, later today, the UK Foreign Secretary James Cleverly is set to call for the UK to have a more constructive but robust relationship with China. Cleverly is expected to use a keynote speech to express the UK's approach towards China. The speech in itself would break the traditional way where foreign secretaries use the annual address to set out their views on a series of foreign policy matters. But Cleverly is expected to use the whole speech, focusing only on China. Well, according to reports, Cleverly will argue isolating China will work against the UK's interest, but at the same time, he will urge China to be transparent about its military expansion, as China held military drills focused on Taiwan. Well, cleverly will turn down the calls from some senior Conservative Party members who are demanding more strict, hardline approach against China, as he is expected to argue that the UK must engage with China to deal with humanity's biggest problems. However, reports suggest the address will also criticise Chinese suppression, where Cleverly will vow that the UK will continue to highlight the Uyghur issue. Meanwhile, the UK government is set to stop the funding for Mandarin teaching as branches of the Chinese state-linked Confucius Institute. The step is expected to be announced by Cleverly later on today. Well, earlier, reports alleged that a secretive visa scheme has been used to fast-track Chinese government-vetted staff to come to the UK so that they can promote Chinese Communist Party values at the institute. Well, in total, there are around 30 branches of the Confucius Institutes here in the UK. Earlier, the UK Prime Minister vowed to close these institutes here in the country. Well, the UK government provides around 27 million worth of pounds of funding for Mandarin teaching at these institutes. Well, we're going to learn more about all of this with our next guest. Delighted today to be joined by Jean-Pierre Cabestan. A warm welcome to you, who was a professor of political science, the Department of Government there at the International Studies, joining us live from Hong Kong. A warm welcome to you, Jean-Pierre.
Good morning.
So just give us your initial thoughts on the potential closing down of these institutes. Is it warranted?
Well, I think the UK and other countries in the world have to be very much aware of mainland China's united front diplomacy. The Communist Party of China has always promoted that type of policy in order to influence the host countries interested in learning more about China, learning the language, learning more about its history and civilization. So clearly, what China ambitions here is to control the narrative about China around the world. Now, it's just one facet of China's growing influence around the world. There are many other dimensions, including the military dimension you've mentioned, but also trade and economic relations with a lot of countries.
Okay, and in your opinion, how threatened should we be about China here in the West?
I think we have to be aware of China's growing influence. Where China is more threatening is, of course, closer to home, I would say, in the Taiwan Strait, in the South China Sea, and it's more China's immediate neighbors which are quite worried about China's ambitions, in particular its willingness to accelerate unification with Taiwan by any means. So that's where the risk of war, the risk of instability are the most obvious. Now, around the world, of course, China is trying also to increase its economic influence and political influence in many ways, and in capturing or influencing and even capturing elites around the world, if possible, which are, people and companies which are dependent upon China for their well-being from an economic point of view. So here I think we have to be aware of all those risks, but at the same time it's possible to mitigate them in being more selective and more rigorous in our engagement policy towards China.
Okay, Jean-Pierre, thank you so much indeed. Thank you for your time. Emeritus Professor of Political Science, Department of Government and International Studies, joining us live from Hong Kong today. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Our next story today focuses on the UK as the threat of strikes still loom over the country, with one industrial action even expected to collide with the Coronation Day. Well, the UK government has now applied for a court to stop the nurses from striking. Well, Health Secretary Steve Barclay says he is acting on a request from the NHS employers, as they have declared the planned walkout on the 2nd of May as unlawful. Well, Barclays says despite attempts to resolve the situation, the health department has been left with no choice but to proceed with legal action, while adding that he supports the right to strike, but the UK government cannot let an unlawful strike go ahead, nor ignore the request of the NHS employers either. Well, nurses in England are due to start a new strike on the 30th of April, and it will end on May 2nd, as the members of the Royal College of Nursing voted to reject a 5% government pay offer. Well, this has led to fears about the treatment of procedures of patients with critical care needed, and have added to the already worsening backlog in appointments and procedures. Well, our correspondent will be joining us live from London. Alex Isaac, great to see you as always. Just to sort of make it clear for everybody, here in the UK, it is illegal for the police and the military to strike, but nurses at this point in time are more than able to do so. But that could change.
Yes, you're right. So the police and armed forces, they aren't able to strike. It's in their contracting. But this particular High Court effect, which Steve Barclay has said that he doesn't want to go to, but he has to try and stop any kind of illegal striking, isn't with regards to them moving forward and not being able to strike in the future. It's just on this specific mandate. Now, the nurses did say that they had this 6-month mandate, and in that they could strike as many times as they wanted to over that 6-month period, while discussing how they were going to move forward with the government. Now, that does end on the 1st of May, and as we know, that's a public holiday here in the UK, so that's on Monday. That's the date that it ends, and that is what Steve Barclay is going to the High Court to try and stop them going further, and then striking on the 2nd of May, which is what they're claiming to do. Now, he says, and the government has said many times that they don't want to stop people striking. It is their right as UK nationals to be able to protest and to strike as well, but it is specifically down to that 6 months mandate that is gone over by the time that they finish their strike on the 2nd. Of course, the RCN have said that they believe that this is a threat, and that they don't want to be taking any threat, because they're seeing it in the future that if the High Court comes in and cancels at least one day of their strike, are they going to step in and cancel more as well? But it does seem that the public are still behind the nurses. Many polls have come forward and said that a lot of people are hoping that they get that pay rise that they're asking for, although they have recently rejected the 5%. The unions themselves had encouraged their members to take that 5%, but the members themselves have said no, it's not enough, and also they want it without any conditions. They don't want to have 0-hour contracts, and they don't want to work above and beyond their hours. And of course, why should they? They do seem to have a lot of the issues throughout the hospitals, throughout GP clinics. They are the first people at port of call when people go into these places, and they are getting a lot of abuse on a daily basis, and they just want to be able to do their job that they love and not have to worry about going home and the cost of living crisis and finding food banks, because that's what they're telling us that is happening when they just want a pay rise to go in line with inflation.
Alex, thank you so much for unpacking all of that for us. It is rather complicated, but we appreciate you taking us through the details. That's our London correspondent, Alex Isaac. Well, the migrant issue has been one of the top priorities for the UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak, and now a latest report shows that Indians have overtaken Albanians to become the second largest group crossing the English Channel. Well, according to data provided by the UK Home Office, in the first 3 months of 2023, 675 Indian migrants were recorded crossing the Channel in small boats. Last year, the number was 683 for the whole year. Well, according to the reports, the number of Albanians fell to 29 between January and the end of March. The decline is because of the decrease of migrants owing to the winter season, and UK government's plan as well to fast-track deportations. Last year, Albanians were the biggest nationality, with more than 12,000 people crossing the Channel. Experts believe Serbia's visa-free travel rules for Indians have provided a gateway into Europe, due to which the cost of a small boat journey has also fallen as well to an average of £3,500. After Indians, the next biggest group is Iran at 524, followed by Iraq at 345, Syria at 286, and Eritrea at 232. This year, more than 5,500 migrants have crossed the channel in total. As on Saturday, a new daily record was set for the year, with 497 migrants crossing the channel in 11 boats. There's been a big shake-up in American TV news. Fox News' Tucker Carlson and CNN's Don Lemon have parted ways with their respective channels, leaving audiences speculating on the reasons. Well, the news of the exits broke on Monday, just a few minutes apart. First, Fox News reported that it had parted ways with Tucker Carlson, the host of the network's 8 p.m. show Tucker Carlson Tonight. And just a few minutes later, CNN host Don Lemon posted a note on Twitter informing his followers that he had just heard through his agent that the network was firing him. Well, taking to Twitter, Lemon said, and I'm quoting this one here, he said, "I'm stunned that after 17 years at CNN, I would have thought someone in management would have had the decency to tell me directly. At no point I was ever given any indication that I would not be able to continue to do the work I have loved at the network." Well, both the departures were announced almost simultaneously. While Carlson's exit was publicly framed as a mutual decision, Lemon was open about his termination, at the channel. Well, the circumstances of Lemon's departure is not quite clear as yet. He had faced scrutiny for on-air comments he made about the 2024 presidential candidate Nikki Haley during a February broadcast of CNN This Morning programme. CNN on Monday said it had parted ways with Lemon on good terms.
The Don Lemon situation seems to be a little different than Tucker Carlson. It isn't, he wasn't their top person. He wasn't basically somebody who had this immediate trigger, I think. Like, it's, from what I've seen online, a lot of it is this general drift. I think he's perhaps inconsistent with the brand that CNN is trying to build now versus where they were a few years ago.
While Tucker Carlson's exit comes a week after Fox agreed to settle a lawsuit with Dominion Voting Systems, which had accused Fox News of airing false election claims and conspiracy theories following the 2020 presidential elections.
I will say that it is shocking. But Fox has done this before. Fox has taken some very heavy hitters and send them packing before. So I guess it's not completely unexpected. It could be that what Fox was pushing Tucker to say on air seems to, based on the Dominion leaks, have been inconsistent with what he really thought, and he was doing some self-censoring. So yeah, I expect that he might actually take advantage of this and drop some bombs. Yeah, it'll be fun.
Well, Carlson's next move is unclear. His primetime show, Tucker Carlson Tonight, had been a popular cable news program in the key 25 to 54 category. Well, the departure of both Lemon and Carlson on the same day has raised questions about the future of cable news and the role star anchors play in shaping public opinion. Okay, let's get some finance news now, because the UK's economic growth is in the spotlight as Prime Minister Rishi Sunak introduced Business Connect, which is a new programme aimed at optimising conditions for businesses to thrive. Well, with over 1,800 jobs created monthly since Sunak took office, the event garnered over 200 high-profile CEOs and business leaders to discuss growth plans and innovation. Well, let's take a closer look at what this means for the UK economy, shall we? So, in a bid to boost the UK economy, Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Business Connect initiative brings together CEOs and business leaders representing key growth sectors with a focus on fostering innovation, creating jobs and driving the economic growth. The Business Connect event in London showcased the government's commitment to working with business to optimise conditions for success. Well, with the launch of the Foundation Model Task Force backed by £100 million in initial startup funding, The government is accelerating the country's capability in artificial intelligence. Well, this move aims to create better paid jobs, advance healthcare and security. As part of the long-term plans for an innovative UK, the government introduced the innovation category at the Great British Entrepreneur Awards, with plans for new trade deals, including a free trade agreement with India and a strong focus on collaboration between the government and businesses. Sunak believes the Business Connect initiative sets the stage for a more prosperous and globally competitive UK.
Second year. A mandate that says we want a stronger NHS, better schools, safer streets, control of our borders and levelling up. That is the mandate that
Stars of the Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 hit the orange carpet at Disneyland Paris for the movie's European premiere. More on this in our next report.
Ladies and gentlemen, make some noise for Vin Diesel!
Guardians have always been the coolest ones in the galaxy. You know, they're the coolest one. That's who every Avenger wants to be, a Guardian. But they can't be because they're not cool enough.
I'm so grateful to God, to James, to Marvel. I mean, look at this. We're at the Marvel campus. What an extraordinary 10 years for Marvel. I'm grateful to the fans, to you guys showing up. You have changed all of our lives.
Okay, let's get some sport news now, because the five-time Premier League champions Chelsea are closing in on the appointment of Mauricio Pochettino as their permanent manager. Well, the Blues have entered into the final round of negotiations, and the Argentine looks set to become the fourth manager under American co-owner Todd Boehly in less than a year. So Chelsea are having one of their worst seasons. They are out of all competitions and in all likelihood will miss out on European football next year. Well, the top management wants a quick resolution of the situation, have held a series of positive talks with Pochettino. The 51-year-old Argentine is out of work since Paris Saint-Germain sacked him in July last year. He emerged as